Hello everyone, Tamer Gamer here, and today I have a very topical commentary for you because today's commentary is going to be all about 402's resignation from Infinity Ward and Activision. But before I get into that, I just want to have a quick talk about the gameplay. You know, this is a gameplay that normally I would upload over Sunday Talk or something. It's a pretty good gameplay. I think the final score's 32-6, just to spoil it for you. But it's a specialist MP7 gameplay on the map bootleg, as you can see, and it's just something interesting to watch in the background because I like to be quite aggressive with specialist. You know, once I've got my perks set up, so it's an interesting gameplay. But like I said, this commentary is going to be all about my reaction to Robert Bowling basically resigning from Infinity Ward and Activision. So I'm just going to start this off with the hard facts, you know, the core facts of what happened, and then after that I'm going to go into my opinions over why I think it happened, you know, what the fallout could be. But let's get right on to the facts, because yesterday Robert Bowling tweeted, and I'm going to read the tweet out for you. It basically said, "Today, I resign from my position as creative strategist of Call of Duty and as lead designer of Infinity Ward and as an employee of Activision." And that is basically it. You know, no further explanation has been given so far as to why 402 left. But, you know, in my opinion, there's only really two reasons why he left. And the first one is the way his role eventually, you know, turned out, because I'm not sure what the job description of creative strategist is, but what ended up happening was Robert Bowling basically spent the vast majority of time answering quite a lot of negative criticism on Twitter, because Infinity Ward are, you know, it's been published everywhere, and I've, you know, given my 2 pennies worth on this, but Infinity Ward always has a problem with patching games. And so what this ends up doing is creating a situation where a substantial part of the community is unable to play the game as they would like, because, you know, the game is so buggy or glitchy, or some weapons are overpowered, and people used to take their frustrations out not on Infinity Ward, not on Activision, but Robert Bowling. You know, Robert Bowling was in the firing line for, you know, pretty much since day one. You know, he was blamed for lag compensation, he was blamed for one-man army, he's blamed for panic knifing. You know, in my opinion, it's a miracle Robert Bowling stayed this long, because if I was him, I would have resigned about 3 months into Modern Warfare 2's life cycle, because the amount of abuse he got was just astronomical. And I mean, I've given rants at Robert Bowling before, but I've never gone personal, and I've always gone, you know, Infinity Ward, sort your game out. You know, I've never blamed Robert Bowling for the game being broken, because it's not his fault. He's one guy. You know, he isn't developing the game on his own. You know, a lot of things, you know, he would do personally, Activision completely ignored. For example, Robert Bowling is not a big fan of Last Stand, and he wouldn't have put Last Stand in any Call of Duty, and he wouldn't have put Final Stand in any Call of Duty, but he got outvoted by other developers. So I think Robert Bowling's view of what Call of Duty should be is a lot closer than a lot of other people's view. You know, a lot of developers' view on Call of Duty. Sorry, I'll get my words out, but you know, that's the first reason. I think possibly just the tide of abuse got too much for him, and to be honest, his, you know, fortitude has to be praised, because like I said earlier, I would have resigned years ago from that position, because it just seemed to be a nightmare. But anyway, the second thing why I think Robert Bowling might have resigned is that Activision are planning something that he, you know, strongly disagrees with, and he doesn't want to be associated with. Now, I have no idea what that could be yet, but if that is the reason why 402 has resigned, I'm very, very worried, because if it's something so bad that it makes the community strategist resign, I'm going to be, you know, pretty worried about that. I have no idea if that's the case. You know, it might just be wanted a new challenge or whatever, but if he has resigned due to something Activision's going to be doing, there'll be something pretty severe coming up in the future. And, you know, the only way to tell if that is correct is just to wait, you know, wait it out. If in about a week or so we get a big announcement from Activision that basically sucks ass, we'll know that Robert Bowling left because he completely disagreed with that. And if he has left because of his principles, I'd like to congratulate him, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's just a job. And if a job is making you go completely against what you believe in, then it's a very good thing to leave. But, you know, I have no idea why Robert Bowling left. I'm sure we'll find out in the course of time. But this is just the two things that sprang to my mind immediately as, you know, very good potential reasons. Now, it is just speculation, I know, and I might be completely off the mark. But as a first impression, I think that's a fairly accurate reason why 402 could have resigned, because, you know, he was left with just an impossible job in the end. But, you know, I want to move on from the reasons why he resigned to the possible fallout of his resignation now, because now that Robert Bowling has resigned, there is no community representative for Infinity Ward anymore, for the Call of Duty franchise on Infinity Ward's end. You know, I think, you know, David Vonderhaar, I think it is, he's the community manager or strategist or whatever his job title is for Treyarch, and I think he does a decent job. But now Infinity Ward doesn't have a creative representative, so the immediate consequence of this is that Activision and Infinity Ward become even more of a faceless corporation than they were before, because Robert Bowling, one of the main reasons that Robert Bowling ended up being this scapegoat is because virtually every other Infinity Ward employee, an Activision employee, never speaks. You know, I do not know a single other Infinity Ward employee. You know, the only one I did know before was Vincent Pella, and he resigned in Modern Warfare 2. So, you know, no other Infinity Ward employees are in the public domain anymore, and that is a very, very bad thing, because it just removes accountability. You know, the big thing about any major organisation is you've got to have a face for it. You know, you cannot be just this faceless organisation, because there's no accountability anymore, and that is a big, big problem for Call of Duty, because they can take this any direction. I mean, they could take it in a pretty horrific direction, and because now there isn't anyone to take people's opinions to account, that could be a potentially very, very damaging thing. Because what the you know, intermediate solution is at the moment is basically address all of your concerns to Infinity Ward. Now, Infinity Ward's Twitter account isn't the most active out there, and I can see the vast, vast majority of tweets getting ignored. So what happens now is, you know, whilst before it wasn't a perfect situation, you know, with just one guy, you know, getting all of this tide of feedback, now it's probably going to be even less. So the community is going to be listened to even less than they are now, and they're really going to struggle to be listened to less than they are now, because I don't know a single player in Call of Duty, and I know probably about 100 people who play Call of Duty. I don't know one of them who likes death streaks. Not one. But death streaks are in the game. So what does that show you about Activision and Infinity Ward? I think it shows you that they don't really care about the core community. You know, they make very, very noob-orientated games, and what the core community normally does is try and drag them away from the lunacy and a little bit to more, you know, towards a game which is balanced, because rewarding people for doing badly is obviously a stupid idea. But what this means now in the grand scheme is, if we have opposition, you know, the Call of Duty community opposes a measure that Activision and Infinity Ward introduced, we have virtually no way of expressing our opinion anymore. And that's a very, very dangerous thing, because recently games developers have shown that they can't be trusted to do things that are in the best interest of the community. I mean, the major example of this is Mass Effect 3. I mean, I'll give you a prime example of what I mean. BioWare and EA decided that it's a good idea for people to pay £10 on release day, in addition to the 40 quid they've already paid for the game, to buy a character that is on the disc already. Now, this is obviously a terrible, terrible thing. However, they didn't stop at that. What they also did was do one of the worst endings in a game I can ever think of. You know, and I've been a gamer for about, you know, 12 years now. I got my first PS1 probably about age 6 or 7. You know, I got like Crash Bandicoot, the original Crash Bandicoot on PS1. You know, so I've played a lot of games. I've played a lot of games with my mates, you know, and I cannot think of a worse ending for this. But do you know what? After that terrible, terrible ending, BioWare and EA put a message saying, buy some more DLC. So they have made you sit through 30 minutes of quite possibly the worst ending to any major game ever, and then they push more DLC on you. And that is just the perfect example of how little games developers seem to care. And the problem with that is now that we've lost Robert Bolin, we have no way of reliably informing Infinity Ward what we think of their policies. I mean, Activision has always been a faceless corporation. I have no idea what role Activision play in Call of Duty. But now I have even less idea of what Infinity Ward are planning, because any hope we had of being kept up to date, I think, has gone with the resignation of Robert Bolin. And I think in the long run, this can only be a bad thing for Infinity Ward and only a bad thing for the Call of Duty franchise. So, guys, that'll be the end of my commentary. I hope you've enjoyed it. This is a really, really interesting subject. It'll be fascinating to find out Rob's reasons for retiring. It might for resigning. Sorry, not retiring. It might be something as simple as he wanted a new challenge, but at the moment, it looks like there's something a little bit deeper to that, in my opinion. But like I say, we'll see in the next few days. Guys, I really hope you've enjoyed sitting here and listening to my commentary. If you have, please rate and comment the video as always, because it really, really does help this channel out a huge amount. So guys, thank you again for watching, and as always, have a fantastic day.